everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Igor Akpovo. I am an instructional designer in the Office of Online Learning and Academic Programs. I hope your semester is starting well. If this is the first time you're here, we are thrilled to have you here. And if this is not the first time, we appreciate you and your continued support of OLAP's initiatives. Feel free to use the chat to share your comments or questions, or if you prefer, you can unmute yourself. Also note that this session will be recorded and available on our website next week. I would like you to meet my team members who are here today. So if you don't mind, I'm going to call on those of us who are here. First is Jason Brown. So you have about 30 seconds to share who you are, what you like about this job, and then your role.
Did that count into my 30 seconds?
Yes.
So I'm it's good to see a lot of familiar faces in the room, especially Amy and Sally up in my corner up here. I'm the video production manager for OLAP, leading a team supporting online course content development and video. So I hope to get a chance to meet some of you as the year progresses. I hope your semester is starting off well. What did that come out to, Igor?
About 25. You're good. You're doing well. Thank you. The next here, well, Dr. J, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Nice to see everybody. It's great to be here. This is I'm not even into my full first month yet at UTK, and I'm the new director of online learning and course production. I'm so happy to be working with this team.
Thank you. And our boss, Josh Steele.
Hey, it's good to see everyone. Josh Steele, I serve as the Assistant Vice Provost. Apologize if you can hear all the insects. We've got the post-rain noises going on behind me, but I really enjoy these events, and a huge thank you to Dr. Billone for agreeing to kick us off this year with our brown bag series. So good to see you all.
Thank you. Let's see. Jennifer, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, would you like to introduce yourself, about 30 seconds, who you are, your role, and then what you enjoy about your
Igor,
job?
I'm in the car.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. I had to run an errand. I didn't know you were going to ask me. I guess I can. I'm afraid I'm just sort of, next time I promise I'll be better prepared.
It's okay. So for everybody, Jennifer Grammel is a director of online programs. Dr. J, do we have any other team member here?
Not that I can see.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I would like to kind of give context for today's session. You've seen the RSI, Regular and Substantive Interaction, and it's a new federal mandate. And some of you may not be familiar with what it is. And so in order for you to really have an overview of what it means, and then kind of to allow you to, as Dr. Amy is sharing her strategies, to situate her practices within the context of RSI. So Dr. Jason Johnston will share in about 5 minutes kind of an overview of what RSI is. Dr. J.
Thank you. You guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so this is just a really quick kind of overview. You've heard RSI, it stands for Regular Substantive Interaction, and really to break down even those letters helps us to understand what it is at its core, which is, one, it's regular. A lot of people ask, what does regular mean? Does it mean I have to interact with people every week? Well, this is about good practice too. You probably should be, but it doesn't prescribe anything particularly, but it does mean regularity. And then substantive it really means that the things that you're doing in your classroom, your online class, it actually has to do with the content. So not that you shouldn't and couldn't be talking about the weather and people's lives and all these kind of things are all really important things when we're teachers in the classroom. However, it does not count for RSI. And so it should be related to the course learning objectives or the course material, the content. And then the last one, the I, is interaction, which is really at the core of it, because this guideline was really made because they were concerned about universities creating courses that didn't have any interaction at all happening between the teacher and the student. Courses that really were what were kind of old school correspondence courses, but just put online. And the federal government didn't want to fund those anymore, and wanted to really fund courses that had real interaction between student and teacher. So the I is really the key part of this. And it means that students and instructors need to interact either synchronously or asynchronously. So it doesn't all have to happen live like this. It can happen in an asynchronous, or like from a chat and emails and those kind of things as well. Generally, it's all about good practice, really. And the nice thing about RSI is that for many of you that are already doing good practices in the classroom and online, that RSI just helps to kind of focus on those things and helps us all to kind of legitimize that in terms of the good practices of online course design and delivery. One of the keys, and you'll find this at our website as well as this is right from the regulations pretty much, which is RSI really needs to have at least two of the following, okay? So there's like 5 points here. Some sort of direct instruction, that is like some sort of discussion participation, some synchronous lectures, some one-on-ones, etc. A big question is always, does my recorded lecture count for direct instruction? What we can see, it doesn't say specifically in the regulations, but what we can see, it actually doesn't on its own, but it can be part of a course that is RSI. And then course assessment or feedback to the student. Number 3 there, providing information about responding to questions about the course content. Number 4, facilitating group discussion of the course content. Or there may be other instructional methods that are approved by the creditor, like SACS or other creditors that connected with UTK. So RSI, regular, substantive, interaction, at least 2 of these following things should be represented in an online course to satisfy that. We have a fantastic PDF that was created by some people in OLAP. You can download it at this link right there. And I think, Igor, you're going to put either the link, I can put the link in the chat, and Igor is maybe even going to pop the file into the chat here.
Yeah, I shared a Q&A file to RSI in the chat, and I'm going to stick the link in the chat too. In a minute.
And that's it. I'm just really glad to be able to share with all of you. Thank you, Igor, for your leadership on this. And thank you, Amy, for being here to talk to us. Then Amy's really got the stuff today. This is just a little preamble. Amy's got the stuff to talk to us about what this looks like inside of the classroom.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah, let me see. One more thing before we hand it over to Amy. Amy, would you give me 5 more minutes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So just wanted to kind of say a few words about our upcoming initiatives. So for the fall semester, we are going to be offering just-in-time workshops, and so we would like to hear from you. Right, we want to make sure that what we offer is exactly what you're asking. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to share a link to a Google Doc in the chat, and if you can share with us ideas about topics that you'd like to see us, present on just-in-time workshop. So as you're listening to Amy, you have questions or anything related to online teaching, or it could be you want to know more about RSI or anything you might be experiencing in your class or your colleagues, you hear from them that they're experiencing that you like to know more about, please write those in that Google Doc, and we'll make sure that our workshops really address those topics that you share with us. So thank you and everyone for being here. So now I'm going to hand it over to Amy.
Hello, my name is Dr. Amy Billone. I'm a professor in the English department, and I can't wait to talk to you today about the really exciting and gratifying experiences I've had with asynchronous teaching this past year. So far this year, last summer, this summer, and during the school year, I've taught 8 asynchronous classes, and they were the first of my lifetime. So it's been a real adventure. I'd like to share my screen right now so that I can take you through a PowerPoint that I made for this presentation. So I will go ahead and do that now. Let me just see, is the PowerPoint looking okay? Okay, great. So
Yes.
I will be talking about using RSI, regular and substantive interaction, in order to increase student engagement, in order to increase their satisfaction. I feel like students, when these RSI guidelines are followed, the students are so much happier. This is something I've learned, is that I did not know what RSI was when I began this asynchronous teaching. I got very, very lucky because I volunteered to create a class and make it an IDP class, or an interdisciplinary class. And for that reason, I had help for a year from a Jumpstart team to develop this class. On the bottom of my screen, if you can see what I taught this past summer, it's 480. It's a class on the fairy tale. And so I had a lot of help putting this asynchronous class together. I still didn't think I'd be able to do it, even into the spring of 2021, I think it was. I was saying, I don't think I can put this together. I can't do it in the summer. I was that worried about it. So the fact that things have gone as well as they have, I actually think my evaluations may be better than they have ever been in my life. And I've been teaching here since 2001. So I've been teaching for 25 years face-to-face. So the fact that asynchronous would be going this well, it has been completely shocking to me. I did not think it could be done, certainly by me, because I never thought of myself as really working in this way. The other 2 classes I developed on my own, they are a senior seminar that you can see in the upper left-hand part of my screen that I'll be teaching this fall. I also taught last fall asynchronously, which is a class I call Celebrity from Romanticism to the Present. The goal of that class is to teach students how to write really serious and really, really impressive academic papers that are evaluated by our department and then are sent on to the state of Tennessee. So it's a different kind of teaching than 480 is. And then a class I've taught since the beginning here, 339, which is on children's and young adult literature. I've set my classes up so that students can take both 339 on children's and young adult literature and 480 on the fairy tale in any sequence. So I have found this past year that the same students will come from 480 to 339, or for 339 to 480, and then they'll also turn up in the 483 class if they qualify, if they're English majors. The 339 class is drawing from majors from all over the university, which I also find really exciting. So because the US Department of Education now requires regular and substantive interaction, it's very important to learn how to use or make use of these guidelines. I have found, as I mentioned before, that even students who are opposed to online learning end up finding by the end of the semester that they're happier than they thought they would be when these guidelines are followed. And I do want to just preface all this by saying I was following these guidelines without knowing they existed. It was only after the 8th class I taught that I found out about all this. And then I realized exactly the comments the students are making on their evaluations. They're all corresponding to these guidelines. So I realized how accurate these guidelines actually are in terms of how to, I don't know, create the sort of results that we're all wanting to create in the classroom. In terms of synchronous and asynchronous teaching, I'm sure everyone knows the difference. Asynchronous teaching is in real time and asynchronous teaching isn't. For the IDP class I needed to develop, it needed to be completely asynchronous because ultimately those classes will they're for students all over the world that can't come back to UT, who can't graduate. So eventually it will detach from students on campus, and it will be from students in all different time zones, able to take it that way. So it really needed to be a fully asynchronous class. That's how I've set up all of my classes. So I will be talking about asynchronous classes. Although on the left part of the screen, it says that synchronous classes are possibly more engaging and effective, I have found that not to be true. I have found that asynchronous classes can be in some ways even more engaging and effective if they're just, if the energy is just kind of, I don't know, in a way sort of generated in the right way. So I have a series of strategies I've used that have worked, and I've used the same strategies in all 8 of the classes. I, again, as I said, thought asynchronous teaching would be impossible for me. I'm the kind of a person who never scripted a lecture in advance. I never went in front of a classroom with, sometimes I would have no idea of exactly what I was going to talk about. There was always a spontaneity in the way that I taught, where we would have discoveries or revelations together that were often completely unexpected. And I felt there was a kind of chemistry in the room that was entirely dependent on face-to-face learning. I found with synchronous learning that exactly the same thing was happening that happened in face-to-face. So I was really relieved that there wasn't that much of a difference. But these asynchronous classes, I thought, how is this going to be possible? I got tremendous help from a Jumpstart team developing these classes, which I'm so grateful for, because it's possible on my own. I might not have been able to create the classes and have them work as well as they have. So what the Jumpstart team did for me was they watched me teach 480 on the fairy tale for the first time. It was a class that I had never taught before. A professor used to teach it who retired. I taught that synchronously in the spring of 2021. And then the Jumpstart team, we recorded all of my classes, and the Jumpstart team watched my recorded classes and tried to help me figure out in sessions with me how we could convert what I was doing synchronously into an asynchronous class. Like how could this kind of transition take place? I have found that increased happiness among students actually increases their interaction, but I have also found that increased happiness increases their interaction, but also increased interaction increases their happiness. It's kind of hard to explain, but I feel that there's like a double movement taking place where there's sort of a spiraling effect where there will be more and more and more interaction, the happier students are, which then produces more happiness. And so this is sort of how I've designed the classes. I wanted to just mention, I have a timer set. I have my timer set for 20 minutes, so I will not talk too long. I'll leave plenty of time for questions. I'm not able to see the chat while I'm talking, but if you can keep putting questions there when we get done with this presentation, I will be thrilled to answer any questions you might have, as will the rest of the team. So I want to just talk to you about some of these strategies that I've been using. Substantive interaction, this maybe have been on the link that you have in the chat, and it also, we were just talking about this before my presentation, that it involves at least 2 of these following guidelines, but the whole point here is to engage students in teaching, learning, assessment. It has to be consistent with the content under discussion, and it has to include at least 2 of the following guidelines. I am mainly going to be talking about the first guideline, which is providing direct instruction of course content, because I feel like the way that I have been doing that in these classes involves so many steps. It does include the pre-recorded lectures that I make available in advance. For every week of the class, they're all available. But there are so many other components to how those pre-recorded lectures are working that I would love to talk to you about that. And then also the feedback point, I feel like has really, in my students' evaluations, come up again and again about what they're enjoying so much about the classes. In terms of 3 and 4, for the third, providing information or responding to student questions, on the simplest level I have on the syllabus that I will respond to any email I receive within 24 hours. And I'm very frequently on email. Even before this semester has started, I've answered some actually questions that have turned out to be really important. A student who didn't understand the Ovid that they were assigned, I asked a question, I answered that question to the entire class, and then that came into the discussion post already. So I definitely make a lot of use of email. In terms of in real-time group discussion, I don't do that in the asynchronous, but I think discussions are working on a different level. I am always available for Zoom appointments though, so I have one-on-one interaction with the students that way whenever they want it. So how does direct instruction work in my classes? On the one hand, it's through the lectures. The lectures all of them are preceded by focus questions. So this is for my children's and young adult literature class. I've given it the subtitle in my department, Fantasy to Cyberspace, to make it sound a little more exciting, since this class used to only attract majors from the education department and absolutely no one else. Right now it's attracting students from absolutely all over the university. So that's what I want. I don't want students from only one department or another in this particular class. So what focus questions are, I was helped to develop these by my Jumpstart team, who told me to do this. And I modeled these after the quizzes I used to give every Friday or every Thursday, the last teaching day of every week in a face-to-face class. I would give 5-question quizzes. And so I ended up modeling these focus questions exactly on the types of questions I used to give in those quizzes. They are all based on my lectures. So before every lecture, the student sees on one screen, at the top of the screen, they see these focus questions. Right after they see the focus questions, they see my lecture. And then right after that, they see the reading, all of the reading I make available to them through free links. In the case of the children's lit class, I sort of made my thumbnail print so that I'm always wearing a white jacket. In my celebrity class, I did it so I'm always wearing a red jacket in these prints to kind of give a certain consistency so the students know what to expect. They feel more comfortable, I think, with consistency of learning in that way. I generally hold up props like in the pictures. I spent a lot of money on mugs so that each mug corresponding to different stories could be used, and anything like this at all I find actually just makes things work better. So I have my lectures. I'm going to just speed through this, because just if you have your screen open, if you can see for Snow White, you can see the focus questions, you can see my thumbnail print for my lecture. The lectures are all done through Panopto, which I'll talk about in a second. These background designs, certainly the previous one and this one, these were designed by just a brilliant designer at UT who did all of these for my, these designs for my IDP class so that there would be no copyright problems with them. So this is a really gorgeous Snow White picture that she did for me. And I have, I'm holding up a Once Upon a Time mug from the television series, just another mug that I bought to hold things up. So for Cinderella, I'm holding up a watch that with Midnight, and the background design was done by our designer here. And kind of going along with the Little Mermaid, you can see the background design was also designed by our own designer. For Alice, I'm holding up the annotated Alice. Remember that for every one of these units, at the bottom of the screen, the students have a link that takes them to this free reading. So one of the reasons I hold up the annotated Alice in my thumbnail print is to let the students know that if they're interested, they can find the annotated Alice and look at it that way. It's sort of oftentimes when I'm holding up is a Norton copy or something like that, to let them know that there are other sources they can use if they want to move further out beyond just what's available on Project Gutenberg and one archive I've been using. The Wizard of Oz is a hilarious example, because when I made this thumbnail print, I didn't have anything, and I didn't know what to do. So I just saw something on my bookshelf that was a present that someone bought, maybe I bought, maybe one of my kids bought from some airport somewhere. And I thought, well, I'll just hold this up, because it seemed like relevant since it was a city and the Wizard of Oz has to do with the city. But it hasn't been a problem to just hold random items up from my house. I've actually found students enjoy that it all makes sense to them. In this case, I'm holding up the Norton copy of The Secret Garden for my lecture, and then these are all preceded, as I was saying before, by focus questions. The reason I'm mentioning the focus questions is because what ends up happening in my classes is that after the students watch the lectures, which are preceded by focus questions, they need to write discussion questions that are very, very detailed. And then every student needs to find one student in the class and make a video reply to the student's written post. So every student reads every other student's discussion post, and every student then chooses a student. It's all done publicly and makes a video reply. So I've just found that they've mentioned they really enjoy the focus questions because it gives them a sense of what to listen for in the lectures, and then it gives them sort of clues about how to write these discussion posts. And then in turn, there are video replies. And the final aspect I want to talk about, there's feedback then involved in this in writing and through rubrics through me. And the final stage of this is that I make weekly videos to the students about everything that's taken place during the week, which involve their discussion posts, their written posts, their video replies, any questions that have come up. It changes every week. And so I do that every single week for my different classes. And I'll show you some pictures of those. So Sherlock Holmes, we got the focus questions, Peter Pan. This is a volume that I wrote the introduction and notes which I tell the students that they can still get this book it's on the market through Barnes & Noble Classics, but they don't have to buy it. Peter Pan 1911 is available for free through Project Gutenberg, so that they have no obligation to buy these books that I'm holding up. So I think just as we sort of get toward the end of my class, I also wanted to mention that the New Directions unit in my children's lit class, I asked the students to just suggest any books that weren't on the syllabus that they might like to see on the syllabus in the future, or I asked them about what the future looks like, or what they think it will be like in 10 years. And I give them freedom to talk about what excites them the most that we haven't done, or to speculate about the future, because actually the reading list for this class right now, compared to how I used to teach it when I was a graduate student, there's almost nothing in common. I think the only two works in common between now and then are Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland, and everything else is different now. So I think they like to have that sense of power and being able to shape the future of the class. And what I'm holding up, I had absolutely nothing. So I just grabbed something on my desk here, which happens to control the color of the light on a sort of a glowing cube I have on my floor. But it doesn't matter. So this is an example of just how easy it can be to hold up a prop and make it look to the students like it has something to do with the topic. So I do think there's something very interactive about Panopto, which is the way I record my lectures. I do have a dual monitor, so that on one screen I have my PowerPoint, and then on the other screen I'm looking at the PowerPoint on my screen, but there are ways through the different mechanisms of recording this that I can upload two streams to Panopto. One is just my face talking, and the other is the PowerPoint. And so what this enables the students to do is to choose how they see the it doesn't look like it does now, where I'm off to the side of the screen and the PowerPoint is central. The students can actually play around with how they see the presentations. I do carefully caption all of my presentations myself right now. I didn't do that for last summer, but I found that the 85% success rate that was taking place wasn't enough. So I found that the students were making mistakes because they were seeing the words wrong on the screen. So now I caption everything carefully myself. I do change my virtual background for everything in 480 and 339. As I just mentioned, I use objects around my house, different mugs. This is a little bit at the beginning of my lecture on fairy tales. Again, that background was designed for us by someone here brilliant designer here at UT, and I'm holding up the Once Upon a Time mug, and you can see the caption. Hello, in this video I'm going to give you a brief history of the genre of the fairy tale. But another option is they can see the PowerPoint slide at the lower right hand. Another option is they can see only the PowerPoint slide and see me in the lower right, or they can see them side by side, where they see the PowerPoint on the left and me on the right. They can choose captions or no captions on the bottom. In terms of the anonymous evaluations, I found that students really often talk about my enthusiasm or my ecstasy or my joy or my passion. And this is what I expected not to come across in asynchronous teaching. So I found myself often re-recording lectures, because in the beginning, having no experience being on camera, I found that I would often give a lecture where I thought I seemed really happy or was really happy, but then I would watch the lecture and I would realize that that happiness that I thought I was projecting wasn't coming across when I was viewing it. And I realized I actually had to increase my happiness level by about, 20%, so that it would radiate out of the screen. So this was the learning experience to me. I think you do need to increase the happiness level that you are radiating in your lectures beyond what you would ever do in a real life interaction, because otherwise that's the only way to make it kind of resemble that enthusiasm you can generate in person. So the students say words like passionate, inspires them to be a better professor, that they enjoy the tone, that they look forward to completing the assignments, but this is partly because of the lectures, that I'm so excited, that I'm passionate, that they've never seen anyone as ecstatic and joyful that I am. I think this is coming through through these lectures. And they also say, this comment here is actually one student. It was one single comment. I just divided it into bullet points just to make it easier to read. But the end of the comment here is that because I communicate that I want my students to succeed, that's why they put in the extra effort and why they do succeed. So it's again, kind of what I was talking about before about increasing interaction, increasing happiness, that all of this being kind of self-generating. that this student who says I've crafted the most excellent asynchronous course they've taken at UT, the reason for this ultimately is that my passion is contagious. So I think, again, the passion is coming through. I do think it comes through in my comments, in my written comments, and in my weekly videos, but I also think it's coming through in these lectures. So this is, again, why I wanted to mention that I do think that making these lectures in advance and, again, increasing your energy level beyond what you think it should be in a real life interaction seems to be really important. One says they were helpful for the readings. Others say that one of the best professors, passion, kind, energetic, etc. So great information in the lectures, but enthusiasm being infectious. So I think this is, again, a good sign that the pre-recorded lectures are working. They're preceded by focus questions, and then they're followed by discussion posts and video replies. I give them an example. I know this is illegible. I couldn't make it for today, but this is just an example of a discussion post I wrote with some YouTube clips, and then a video reply I made to myself. One of the really important aspects for me in this class in terms of happiness is that I want for every rubric I have as part of the rubric that a student needs to compliment the other student for the written discussion post, or for everything that has to be half of what they do in their video replies. So I feel like that creates happiness because the students are always hearing something positive about what they've written. Students can choose who they respond to. So it's just that every student needs to every week respond to a different student, and everyone needs to be sure that no one is left without a comment. I have pretty careful instructions about how to make the discussion posts, about what the due dates and grading are, and then up in the upper right, those three vertical dots, the students can see the rubric there. And the way I do my feedback is I do them on SpeedGrader. I click SpeedGrader there, and what I see with SpeedGrader is this. This is for this semester, so you can see that the criteria for these written posts involve the prerequisite 500 word count, follow-up questions for classmates. They have to be about the weekly lectures. They also have to be about the reading materials. If I were to click 10 here, it would show up as 10 automatically on the far right part of the screen. And then at the bottom part of the screen, this is what the students see in the rubric as well. They can see that the video replies have to, number one, be warm. They have to compliment something they liked about the student's post. And two, they have to be question-oriented, where they talk about what the students' post made them think about. In terms of assignment comments, this is the bottom of the screen on when I'm grading this. And when I first saw this, I actually just learned Canvas before I started teaching these asynchronous classes. So it was really a year ago, a little over a year ago. I realized that instead of just writing 3 words here, I actually was capable of writing for 5 hours or 6 hours or 10 hours to one student. And at first I thought, sorry, that is my timer. So I don't like timers, so they make so much noise. I'm just going to finish up quickly. I realized that I could actually write forever. There is no word count limit. I got very, very excited about this because I at first I felt like I was constrained. And so I ended up, I spent a lot of time on their comments. But what I've been very happy to see is the students are reading the comments. So they've been saying that, and they've been enjoying the video replies too. So they say that the video replies make them feel more connected. They can interact. They feel connected to the other students. They've enjoyed the video replies, but they were really skeptical about them in the beginning. They didn't think they were going to like them, but in the end, they found they were actually really enjoyable. They feel connected. That there are so many reasons why an asynchronous virtual class shouldn't work, but the reason this class works isn't because of me, actually. It's actually because of the structure I've set up with these video replies, because the video replies make the students feel so connected to one another. I'm going to just sort of skip ahead to the feedback and just say that the students are reading my feedback. So even though I know I need to manage my time better with this, they're reading my feedback and they're commenting about it, and they're saying that the feedback has just it's made them feel more connected to me, more connected to the class, that that they really are just over and over again. These are all different students. This is all anonymous evaluations, that they're all liking it. I've never had a professor respond to my work in so much detail. It means so much to me. So the students actually do read the feedback, even though I know how much time this can take to do, and that it makes them feel seen and respected and encouraged and valued, and it's personalized feedback, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to skip forward to just show you, these are just quick examples of the weekly videos I make every week, different, holding up a different mug with different virtual backgrounds. And in terms of accessibility, they're happy that I always comments right back to them, and I'll always meet them on Zoom. So I end this with a slide which just has the word happy on it. I am going to, which I often hold up, it's birthday candles I just happen to own that I thought would be a good prop. So I'm just going to end this presentation now, stop sharing, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, as I'm sure will the rest of the team who knows a lot more about RSI than I do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. We have a few questions in the chat. I'm going to start from the bottom. How long are your end of week videos?
Is this how long are my weekly videos, the ones that I make as the semester is going on?
This is from Duran Thompson.
How long are these video lectures typically? The video lectures vary. I mean, I was told by my IDP team to keep them short, maybe 10 minutes, 20, but I have found that I sometimes talk a bit longer. But the students have all said that they're not too long, that they find them okay. So maybe 10 to 20 minutes for those. Anything else?
My other question was how long were your end of week videos? So not the pre-recorded ones, but the others.
Yeah, it's similar, and I might end up changing all this, but I sort of just go with what my emotions tell me. So sometimes there are varying lengths. I've noticed that sometimes they're very quick and sometimes I talk more. If the students have a question that I've seen come up again and again that they haven't answered on their own in all of these interaction and through my lectures, I will talk about an answer to that question in the weekly videos. So I think this is a way of giving them more feedback than they're getting in their personal replies. They're getting as a class feedback in that way, but it can vary. I've heard short videos are better, but I've also found that if I'm excited enough and happy enough and have enough to stay, the students I can see are watching the videos. I also would not maybe have continued with this strategy if I hadn't seen how many students were watching them, and sometimes it will show that they watched them 7 times or something like that, the same video that I make on weekends. And once I didn't make one on a weekend and they wrote me the next day asking where the video was, and so I realized that they actually were appreciating them. This is something for my semester-long classes that I do, these weekly videos.
There's another question. Are there any stop points in the video lectures where students are advised to stop and reflect or do a task?
I have moments in the video lectures where I say, this is a question, this is a fascinating question to me, is how is it possible that the same story, Cinderella, which might seem so dated to us today, has existed from the beginning of time and is still so popular today that it keeps being adapted? How is this possible? Like, I sometimes ask questions where I stop and I don't know if that's really exactly stop and reflect, but I do find that in the video lectures, I incorporate questions as a way, so that I'm not just stating the information, which one student said that they liked in my lectures, that instead I was sort of teaching rather than stating. I think that has to do with the way I ask them questions. At times I say things like, I'm still so obsessed with Peter Pan after all of these years since childhood that I would really love your help in helping me to understand this text. This is why I end the Peter Pan lecture, because I still can't completely understand it. It's something I say at the end of that lecture, and the students, that gives them more freedom. They feel more reassured that they can just say anything because I'm telling them that even I don't completely understand the text. I do feel that certain moments of vulnerability to show them actually make the students feel more feel better about themselves. A lot of them are very, very nervous and insecure and worried that they'll be criticized. So I try to alleviate any possible criticisms in any way that I can, including in the lectures. So
how long does it take you? Part of the reason I'm asking this time is how long does it take you to make the pre-recorded lectures, and then how long does it take you to make the weekly lectures? I mean, is it spontaneous? Do you have to do lots of recordings to get it right or anything like that?
I can tell you that that when I made the Alice in Wonderland lecture, I made it last summer for the fall class, that I had to do it 10 different times, that in every single one of them I said something wrong, that it took 10 times, each one took 12 hours to upload. It felt like a nightmare. That said, I'm using the same, I remade a number of those lectures for when I taught the same class in the spring, and that took much less time. And then I'm using this fall the exact same lectures I used in the spring. So even though it took me so many times to do it, to make it, in the end, you can save time because this semester I'm using the same lectures. I feel that with the weekly lectures, they're easier because I make them on Canvas Studio. In terms of where I post those weekly videos, I post them under announcements so that, and I tell the students that, so all they have to do is they'll get a notification, or I always email them to tell them that the weekly video is there and they click on it that way. I feel that the Canvas Studio is much faster than Panopto, though I do caption everything. So, but those weekly videos are much faster than the videos I make for the classes in general. And I also feel like the videos I made for last summer aren't anywhere near as good as the videos I'm making now. When I was making them in the beginning, there was too much I didn't quite know about, I don't know, about that increased energy level, about all the things I kind of came to know, which is one of the reasons I redid a number of the lectures for 339 for the spring, is I just became more comfortable, confident, with kind of how to appear on camera for the students.
And during that, so if you would like help putting together your videos, we have a team of video production team here. Jason Brown is a lead there. He will be glad to meet with you and help you put together your videos. Jason, anything you want to say to her?
Well, I just actually put a note in the chat for everyone. We're also, for those of you who are new to the university or have not been aware of our newsletter, we're in the process of building a dedicated studio and production space for online video content. And part of that includes 2 lecture recording studios for faculty to use at their leisure. Just have to schedule some time with us to go over it and to make sure that it's not double booked. But it's a controlled environment with no dishwashers, no children, no dogs barking. You can record there as long as you have the energy for it. So, but we'll have details about that coming out imminently, I should say. No colleagues slamming doors, and it's a single story, so there's no one walking walking above you in boots or drilling. It'll be lovely.
Thank you, Jason. Amy, there's a comment from Dr. Bob. He says, have you considered giving students the option to share their discussion posts and replies via audio or video to help promote multiple means of action and expression?
I'm trying to find the comment on the side of the screen, so I can. I'm sometimes better when I can see words as addition. Have you considered giving students the option to share their discussion posts and replies via audio and or videos? Okay, well, the initial. Okay, I've got 2 answers to this. On the one hand, many of their discussion posts are written when they're in response to my lectures and to the readings. And then in every case they make a written discussion post, they have to, within 48 hours, find a student to reply to and make a video reply. So the same student is doing both writing and video reply for the same unit every time, but occasionally there are videos instead of written, where I have them make a welcome video, an introductory video where they talk about themselves, and they also have to make a reply video to one student in the class where they say something complimentary. That's a part of the rubric, and they're already doing that now for this semester. Or for the fairy tale class, I have them make a trailer for a possible movie or possible television series that they might make based on one of the stories or several of the stories. They've been so creative and impressive. But part of that assignment is they have to also have a video of themselves explaining what they've done and why, and then they have to make video replies to each other about that. So I think that the students are doing both video and written. I don't have pure audio, although in some cases, for example, in the trailers, the students, you will just hear their voices, but you will be seeing the images, but you won't see the face of the students. Yet at the same time, I do have the students include a video of their faces talking about what they've done and why. I also have a trailer assignment for my 483 class on writing a research paper where the students need to include their face as a separate video explaining how their trailer could be converted into an academic paper. One reason I really stress having their faces involved so often is because I feel this is how it's one of the reasons they feel that these classes are much more like face-to-face classes and that they are seeing each other's faces. It's also all public, so they can watch each other's videos multiple times and get to know each other. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly. It's all very regular and it's planned out in advance. Everything is uploaded before the semester starts, so there are no surprises for them.
That's another question. Do the student video need to be closed captioned as well?
It does. The Jumpstart team does have that in the instructions that they prepared for me, which I in order to create these two classes, the 483 and 339, the Jumpstart team said I could use what they had created for me for 480 in terms of explanations for how things work. So I copied the 480 class and turned it into 483, and I copied it and turned it into 339. I made a lot of changes, but I was using their model. In their write-up, they tell the students it's always best to caption everything, but I found my students generally don't, probably just because it takes so much time, and I let that go. At the moment, I've been letting that go because at the moment I want them to be happy. No one has complained about it yet, but I do make sure that everything I do is captioned. It does say in their write-up on Canvas that it's best to caption everything if they can.
There's another question from Sally. Have you had students concerned about recording themselves for security or privacy reasons? Not just
No,
because
no, because I consulted, I don't even remember how many people about this, and the Jumpstart team helped me with this. So we actually have a statement, very bold, I think they put it in a certain color background on Canvas that says that it's against FERPA laws to share any video by any student in the class with anyone outside of the class without that student's permission. Basically, it's illegal. And there's a big statement for that, so that none of the students have been worried about that in a way, because I was sure to put that on Canvas, that no one legally can show these videos to anyone else without basically breaking a FERPA law of some sort. I don't really remember the phrasing, but no one has had a problem with it, maybe partly for that reason.
And I can also add something to that.
Yeah.
In Panopto, there's the ability of doing student assignment folders. And so students submit their videos to that folder, and the content exists only within Canvas and can only be seen by students in that class. It cannot even be shared outside of that. So it's all within the walled garden of your course. So
that would be great. Yeah, that would solve the problem completely. Interesting about Flip, I'm seeing on the side in the chat too. I'm using fairly simple methods, so I can imagine certain of these the video replies and so on. I can imagine making them better. There have been some difficulties with loading the screen, but that's partly because I have so many students. I only allow 30 students in to my classes. We're only allowed that limit, but still 30 students is a lot to be, because sometimes they make videos to a number of students and replies. Once a student made a video reply to every student in the class of 30, and other people are making multiple replies, you get all of that on one screen. There was sometimes some trouble loading. So I think another trick, like the ones you're suggesting, might be useful.
I think this next question, I'm sorry, Amy, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Okay, I was going to ask Jason, would you like to take this one? When is the right time to change your old videos or record new videos of the same content?
My answer to that will be it depends. I think it really depends on what your subject matter is, and if you're comfortable with it having longevity. Sciences tend to change a lot, so you may look at updating content more often as new knowledge becomes available. But Amy, I don't know if you intend on recording your lecture content and keeping that part static, and then using that freed time to be more dynamic with your weekly interactions and your RSI. My advocacy has always been in lecture content, keep them very short. I say 3 to 5 minutes, usually very micro. Well, yeah. But it also is so for a couple of reasons. Yours is an energy level. You keep your energy level consistent from beginning to end, so it's not even observable in your lecture content. But if you keep it sort of nugget sized to single subjects, if you need to update something, you only have to pull out that one nugget of single subject to update and change. And then the rest of it still has legs that you don't have to worry about. So that's one advocacy of it. The other side of it is, if you record your lecture content and that's your lecture content, your subject matter is not changing, you have just freed up hours of your time with that investment up front, the 10 hours of recording your lecture content, that you can now fill the hours more valuably and be more individualized with your approach to your students, if that makes sense.
I think that's a great comment, because for my celebrity class, I recorded all the lectures for last fall. I ended up using the same lectures for this fall. I watched them several times to figure out if it was okay to do that. But I saw I was mentioning people like, you know, like Britney Spears, I mentioned her, and that's all changed since then. And then Will Smith, I mentioned him, all things have changed. But it was all okay, because whatever I was saying about the various celebrities that are more recent, it more just got people thinking about them. But I actually did use those same lectures, and it did save a lot of time for this fall. I did remake a number of my children's lectures for the spring versus the fall, but that was partly just because when I was making the fall lectures, I still didn't entirely know. I just feel like I didn't entirely have the right energy level, possibly. I felt that I got much more comfortable making these lectures, and so I redid a number of them. I would redo all of them just because I think I learned how to get a bit better at it. But I completely agree that some can stay. I mean, for celebrity to stay the same from last year to this is a big deal, since celebrity is obviously changing every day. So, but I did feel comfortable doing that, leaving them the same.
Amy, to build on what Jason said, and I know you talk about the energy level in your lecture and all of that, but you also mentioned how long it takes to upload. You might consider pulling it in and just chopping it into, or thinking about some breakpoints, so that you can divide those lectures into pieces, you know, part 1, part 2, part 3. It'll take shorter for each upload. And then, as Jason pointed out, if you needed to fix something later,
yeah,
you only have to fix the one piece.
That's a really good point. I haven't done that yet. Maybe because at first I just wanted the screens to be clean and just have one lecture, one set of focus questions, then the lecture, then the reading. So there's nothing different, and it's always the same every week. But I know what you're saying, and I still obviously have a lot to learn, although I have found it's gotten so much easier. So preparing for this semester was effortless compared to last summer. The number of hours last summer I spent preparing to teach 483 and 339 in the fall, it was insane. But for this fall, it was comparatively effortless, because I'm using, actually, I think, all the same lectures that I used either last fall for celebrity, and certainly for the spring for children's literature. So to be able to reuse lectures is really saving you so much time. It's hard to explain. Whereas if you're teaching face-to-face, you have to keep giving the same lectures over and over and over again to every class you teach. Whereas if you have a lecture that's working that you made last year, it still feels fresh and relevant. You save all that time giving a lecture again. So I think that's a really good point about 2 ways of breaking them down. And I have heard students have very low retention rates in terms of how much they can listen to before they turn off.
And it wasn't meant to be any kind of critique. It was, as you think about redoing them, or as you like you're talking about your celebrity lectures.
Yeah,
that's a good time to think about, oh, maybe we should hack this in a couple pieces.
I think that's a great point, because there were moments I was realizing there are potentially problematic subjects, like I mentioned, where I am not updating the celebrity information, and it would have been good to redo those if I had the time. So that would save a lot of time. Thank you so much. I can't say that I've had the successes I've had with the teaching without putting in at times 21 hours a day. I mean, I've worked really, 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 really hard. What I can say is that the students notice the work I'm putting in. I have put in 21 hours a day before for face-to-face classes, and they've gone terribly, and no one has noticed that I'm putting in that kind of time because it's invisible. In these asynchronous classes, if I'm putting in 21 hours a day, the students are like, oh my goodness, we can see she's putting in 21 hours a day, that they're actually seeing my work. And that's been one of the most gratifying aspects of all of this to me, is that the work isn't invisible, it's actually being seen. So in some ways, I think it's made me work even harder, because I'm so happy that the students are receiving it. Whatever I can give, they're receiving, so it's making me want to give even more. Because I know that they're receiving it and they're contributing even more in exchange, and it's been an unbelievable discovery for me, having never thought this could be humanly possible, and now realizing it's just this unbelievable explosion of pedagogical possibilities that I did not know would be available to me in my history. So I'm very, very excited about these asynchronous classes. So. Thank you so much for the comments on the bottom of the screen. Partly it's just happiness. I feel that the happier I get, I feel like I can communicate that happiness, and the happier then the students get, and then it's like just sort of generates, and more happiness happens, and then more learning happens. So I hope I can continue to stay happy like this. It's probably partly that it's been new to me, so I've just been so excited.
Michelle made a comment about audio feedback, and also alluded to student-student interaction. That's the one thing I wanted to clarify regarding RSI. RSI, when it comes to student-to-student interaction, doesn't meet RSI requirement, right? But then if faculty is moderating those interactions, is involved, then it meets RSI requirement, right? So, and when you're creating opportunities for students to engage among themselves, does not meet RSI requirement, but then it will meet RSI requirement if you are involved in those discussions, if you're moderating. So if you are assigning students into groups and then you jump in and make comments and you connect with them, that will meet RSI requirement. So just, RSI wants you to take that one step further, right? Just don't assign them to groups, but then be there as well. So
I think in my case, I'm doing that because in these video replies and these discussion posts that are all public, they're making, all of that is graded through a double rubric for very specific standards and comments. So they're never not getting personalized feedback from me about any of their interactions. And then that's kind of exaggerated by what I do with the weekly videos where I'm commenting to all of them collectively. Thank you. I'm glad you understand what I'm talking about based on the chat comment, the last one about happiness. It's something that I've been just so thrilled to kind of discover this year, that it is kind of self-generating and kind of accumulating. The more happiness there is, produces somehow or other, it gives you a means of producing even more. I hope things continue to go as they have. I think part of it is if you can find a way to be excited about this type of teaching and to be happy about it, the students see that. I mean, they see your happiness, and that makes them happy too. They say they feel like a rush of joy when they see the videos, comments like that, or they always smile when they see the videos. Partly because I'm trying to smile all the time when I'm talking, things like that. But they also say they're learning more, which I feel like in my face-to-face classes, I never really got the best comments about my lectures. They would sometimes say they were scattered, or now they're saying they love the lectures. This is not what I remember them ever saying face-to-face. So I was saying the same thing. Somehow or other, it wasn't working as well face-to-face. It might be just because now it's only me talking. It's not interrupted by anything else in the class. And so they're enjoying my lectures more than they have in the past.
all right. If you don't have any other questions, thank you, Amy, for a great session today. I just shared a link to our upcoming workshops. We have updated our workshop for the semester. So the link in the chat. Thank you again. I hope you can see us. You can join us in 2 weeks for another great session.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.